Being an advisor is an important part of the NCC Pediatrics residency. Our residents and interns depend on the faculty advisors as an important source of additional feedback, as well as career advice and military advice and life advice in general. This video is designed for you as our advisor to review some of the things that the residents should be doing and how to give advice about their educational progress and future career plans. What we'll do today is give you an overview using a sample resident binder as well as some other resources so you can better counsel your advisees. We recommend that you meet with your advisee quarterly, about every 3 to 4 months. It's likely that you'll meet with your advisee more frequently than that in clinic and other informal settings, but we recommend that you schedule time to sit down and spend the time to review how your resident's life is going and what their educational progress is. Reviewing their binder, which is the record of their educational progress throughout residency, is the best way to document and follow along on how your resident is doing. This has all the information that you need to provide feedback that is so valuable to your residents. Each resident has a binder, and you can get this from Teresa's office. Be sure to check it out so we have accountability of where it's at. And the binder has all of their educational portfolio and their record of training during the program. We're required to keep this indefinitely for credentialing up until the end of their career. Let's review what's in the binder. So in the very front of the pocket, you'll find a quarterly advisee review. That's kind of a cheat sheet for you to kind of hit most of the major points that you need to do to provide effective feedback. So the very first thing in the front of the binder is the resident's block schedule. You can review what rotations they've done and what rotations they're yet to do. And this will become important later on when you help advise your residents on what electives to take. So you can refer to this later. The first section is the emergency data of the resident. This has their pager number, cell phones, and address. Make sure it's up to date. It also has their medical school and license number that is useful for the program office. There's a training agreement. You just know it's there. You do not have to review this. This is the educational agreement with the consortium and the military service and the resident. The next section has the statistics for continuity clinic. All residents are required to have 36 half days of continuity clinic per year. And Teresa, our coordinator, calculates those every few months, and you can make sure that your resident is on track for attendance for the number of clinics per year. Also, there are patient number statistics that need to be met by each level of resident throughout the year. Interns have to have an average of 3 patient encounters per half day per clinic. PGY2s need 4 clinic patients per clinic, and senior residents or third-year residents need 5. And you can review the average number of patients on the spreadsheet here in the binder. The next section is the in-service training exam. For the first meeting of the year, you'll be the first person who reviews their in-service training exam results. Results can be felt to be high stakes by the residents, but they're meant to be low stakes tests that assess their medical knowledge. We don't expect residents at any level to hit the ball of the park, so to speak, on each time, but you do want to see a steady progress. There'll be several sheets of paper. The sheet of paper provided by the American Board of Pediatrics will give their total score, and the scores range from 0 up to 600, 800 points. A passing score is 410 or higher. In our program, we've set an arbitrary benchmark of 100 for interns, 200 for second-year residents, and 300 for third-year residents, since this score corresponds to a 70% chance of passing the boards upon graduation, and that's the average for first-time test takers in the United States. Now, the piece of paper that is provided by the American Board of Pediatrics will have the total score plus a lot of individual numbers that corresponds to questions that they missed. We find this frankly useless except for the total score, so we provide you with additional information that is in the front of the binder. That information will have several things that you can give to the resident. It will have a list of the topics for all 200 questions so they can compare it to the ones they missed. It will also have a graph and tables of the average scores for their year level throughout the United States, plus the percentage chance of first-time passage of the boards upon graduation. Obviously, The score for the third-year exam is much more tightly correlated with board passage than the second or even the intern year exam. So if you're reviewing the scores for an intern, I wouldn't worry too much about whatever score they have, because that really represents their medical school knowledge. But second and third-year residents should take a little bit more in-depth look at their board performance, because this more strongly predicts how they're going to do upon graduation. We provided a graph that shows and tracks their scores compared to the median score for the National Capital Consortium, as well as compared to the national average. And you can see that on a chart that's graphed in red, yellow, and blue lines. Underneath that, you will find about 12 different subcategories, including general pediatrics, orthopedics, GI, hemonc, etc., that shows subscores that we calculate for the residents based on questions that they have missed. Also provided for you are the subspecialty and subcategory class medians, as well as the program medians, that residents and you can use to assess how their knowledge is compared to their overall knowledge, as well as to the rest of their class. This is useful information for designing a study plan, or recommending a study plan, or recommending electives that residents should take in the course of the future years of training. The next section is the resident's procedure log. Unlike surgery and other surgical programs, there is no mandated minimum number of procedures that need to be done by pediatrics residents. However, the American Board of Pediatrics, as well as the ACGME, do recommend that certain procedures be tracked throughout residency. There's 3 categories. There are 4 procedures that need to be tracked throughout residency, and those are umbilical artery catheterization, umbilical vein catheterization, lumbar punctures, and endotracheal intubations. And there are several other procedures that need to be tracked until a resident is competent, including IV placement, venipunctures, and arterial line placements and arterial punctures. And there's a laundry list of other procedures that residents should be exposed to, including foreign body management, pelvic exams, tympanometry, developmental screening, etc. These are all listed on the form. You should review your resident's procedural log throughout all 3 years of residency. And if you identify either through the procedure log or through your resident's report that they need more exposure in a certain procedure, you can recommend or ask the program leadership about opportunities to get that type of experience. The next section are the results from the OSCE, the Observed Structured Clinical Examination. Interns and third years do an OSCE in the spring of that year, and the results from the stimulated patient as well as their faculty supervisor are recorded here. If you're a second year resident, you won't have any recent OSCE results. Most residents have seen this, but you can give the residents opportunity to review it, and you should review it as well. The next section is the Individualized Learning Plan, or ILP. The interns will have hard copy ILPs in their chart in this section. The second and third years will have ILPs that are completed digitally on the American Academy of Pediatrics PediLink. Teresa will print these out and put these in the binder. If the resident has not completed yet, make a gentle reminder to help complete this. The ILP is required of every single resident in graduate medical education in the United States. It's an individualized learning plan that is a self-reflective exercise for residents to identify learning goals for the upcoming year. Residents are apt to do very unfeasible or very general goals, such as I will do 5 board questions per night, and that might be not feasible throughout the whole year. Help them come up with something that's feasible and useful and very achievable and tangible. So review those goals with them. I find it useful also for senior residents to review their ILPs from earlier years to see how well they've kept up or met those goals. The next 3 sections deal with PI projects, journal club, and research. Let's talk about PI projects first. Every resident participates in a performance improvement project every year with their continuity clinic group and some faculty. You should just review what they've accomplished to make sure their binder has that information in there for their permanent record, as well as ask them about the progress of their current PI project this year. Second part of this section has to do with research. There's a requirement in the residency for every resident to complete a scholarly activity. This may mean an abstract or poster presentation or platform presentation at a national meeting, but it also may mean an in-depth literature review of a topic, a book chapter, or a working on an IRB project of a multi-year project that cannot be completed within the allotted time of residency. Residents can take a 1-month research elective that should be tied into an ongoing project and have definable goals. Your resident may or may not have had such an elective already, but they may be considering one in the past, and you can recommend it if you think that would help them meet that goal. All residents present their research at one of the year-end research days that is held during a morning report. Also in this section will be the results of the journal club that most residents do in the 2nd year, although some will do them in the 3rd year. And the article, as well as their slides or other materials that they use for journal club, should be in this area too. This is documentation that they have had at least one exercise in evidence-based medicine throughout their training. The next several sections and the bulk of the binder have to do with evaluations of the residents. There are multiple types of evaluations for your residents, the so-called 360-degree evaluations. There are evaluations by faculty, nurses, and parents in here. So let's review what's in here. The first section will have the results from the Department of Defense patient satisfaction surveys, and they're filled out on the residents. Your resident may or may not have some patient evaluations through this system that you can review with them, as well as some ones that are filled out by patients in the clinic. As you dive into the evaluations, one thing you should do is before you dive into these is to ask the resident what they have taken away from their evaluations as a theme of their particular strengths and their particular areas for improvement. And that self-reflective exercise will make it a lot easier to review the evaluations as you go through them. Your goal at your advisor meeting should be to review the last 3 to 4 evaluations with your resident and look for any themes for particular strengths and particular opportunities for improvement. There'll be their PGY3 evaluations, their PGY2 evaluations, and their intern evaluations. A very important part of the 360-degree evaluation for a resident is the peer evaluation. Research has shown that peers probably evaluate each other more faithfully than attendings, nurses, or any other faculty member in the program. And these can be very telling. So the results of each year's peer review of the resident is in here, in the binder in this section. You will see the average for the class as well as your resident's peer review score. And if they're below average, that should be a reflection of what their fellow residents believe are their particular skills and the different competencies. The next section are the resident-specific comments from the education meeting that occurs monthly. You should feel free and you should be encouraged to verbally discuss what is talked about your resident at the education meeting minute after each education meeting. But for your review, they're all collated here in this binder. Review these comments and look for overall themes. As you know from the education meeting, we review the last month's rotation plus any other ongoing issues with any certain resident. The last sections of the binder, which may be labeled miscellaneous, have miscellaneous information such as morning report attendance, their BLS and PALS card, as well as their interview sheets and their most recent CV. These are in here for your reference. What's not in the binder that you should discuss about are 2 other important things. The first is physical fitness and military professional development. Review with them on their progress with maintaining their physical fitness and ask them about their most recent physical fitness test and their service-specific requirements. And the last and probably the most important thing to talk about is work-life balance and mental health. Residency is a stressful time, especially into the middle of the winter when they arrive when it's dark and leave when it's dark with the long hours and extra responsibilities that residency has compared to medical school. Review this with them. Make sure they're talking to their significant other, family members, getting exercise, reading books, doing their hobbies, and make sure they're having an appropriate work-life balance. Use your own experience and your own wisdom to help advise them on how to achieve that balance throughout their training. A lot of the information that you need to be an effective advisor and have an effective advisee meeting is on the nccpeds.com webpage. If you go to that webpage, under the faculty menu at the bottom is advisor resources. Click on that and you'll get the overview of what you need to do as a resident advisor. There are 3 links on this page that can help you structure your advisee meeting. The first one is the advisor system overview and guidelines that can give you an how-to that has been drafted by experienced educators across the country. The second link are the advisor assignments, which you should probably know by now. And the third one is the advisor checklist for meeting with the residents. We'll click on that. This Word document has some overall go-bys that review some of the things we just reviewed in the binder, such as work-life balance, reviewing the education meeting minutes and the evaluations, the individualized learning plan, procedure logs, continuity clinic experience, the medical knowledge check with the in-service training exam, their scholarly project and research progress, their physical readiness, and career and life planning. They have some sample questions and should serve as a prompt to help you structure your meeting. Your service as a faculty member in this program, and particularly as an advisor to the residents, is one of the most valuable things that you do here. Your residents appreciate the feedback from another member of the faculty that's not the program leadership and not from the direct supervisor, and your wisdom and experience in your career as a pediatrician and as a member of your family is invaluable to them as they plan their career. Thank you for looking at this video and being an advisor to the residents. Feel free to contact Teresa or any one of the residency leadership staff for advice or to answer other